grade 2. This is lesson 19, and we are talking more today about intervals. Okay? Last week we talked about intervals, the second and the third. Remember, a second is always the very next space or the very next line on the staff. On your instrument, it would be the very next finger or the very next letter in the alphabet. That's a second. Okay? Seconds can go up, seconds can go down, but it goes space to line, or, oops, I did the same thing here. Or we could even go line to space. Okay? All of these are seconds. Now, a third. We also call a second, before I get to thirds, I got ahead of myself. Before we get to thirds, we also call seconds steps. So, a step is the same thing as a second. It's just another way to say it, okay? A third. Now we can talk about thirds. What's another way to say a third? A skip, right? And the reason we say a skip is because it skips a line. So it goes space, skip the line, space. Or line, skip the space, line. Now, it isn't just this line or this line. You skipped a line. You have to skip the very next thing. So if it's a line, it skips the space and goes to the next line. So line to line or space to space. And it's the one right next to it. Okay? Does that make sense? This is not a skip, because we actually skipped 3 in there, 2 spaces and a line. So it has to be where it's the very next line or the very next space, and they can go up or down. Okay? So that was last week, steps and skips, seconds and thirds. Now remember, how did we decide that it was a second or a third? And that was the letters, right? So a second, A to B. First letter, second letter. So it's a second because it uses 2 letters. A to C. A, B is in here, right? We skip it. C, how many letters? 3. So that's why we call it a third. Guess what? Today is fourths and fifths. So a fourth. How many letters are in a fourth, do you think? That's an easy question, huh? 4. So A, B, C, D. Count them. 1, 2, 3, 4. When we don't play these 2 and we play A and D, that's a fourth because there are 4 letters. Now, it's super, super important. If I could have a megaphone and a crazy hat, I know I have crazy hair, but if I could have a crazy hat and get your attention to help you remember that when you're counting intervals, you have to count the first letter as 1 and the last letter. It has to be included in your count, okay? So, I should get my eraser out, but my fingers are working okay today. So, if we go from here, there's 1, right? Because we count the note. 2, 3, 4. So this one is a line to a space, just like a second. A second was a line to a space, but it's not the very next space. It's the space after that, okay? So I don't even pay attention to oh, we skipped a space and a line. You can just count them, okay? And I think that's easier than trying to remember, oh, it's space to line, and which space is it? Just count. So you have 1, then the space is 2, the line is 3, the space is 4, okay? So if you're counting letters, it's 4 letters. If you're counting on the staff, you're going line, space, or space, line, space, line, okay? On your fingerboard, we talked a little bit about steps and skips on your fingerboard last week, and you don't have to do this on your worksheet yet, but remember, steps are the very next finger, A to B or B to C sharp. A skip is A, skip B, land on C sharp. A fourth, we skip A and B, or we skip B and C sharp. So we go A, D, okay? So at the top of your page, it's just like last week. You guys this should be easy because you've done these kind of questions already. But now it's fourths. Up a fourth, down a fourth. What letter is up a fourth from A? What letter is up a fourth from C? Now the difference this week is I didn't give you every letter. So be sure you're paying attention and count the first letter as 1. Okay, so C is 1. Then you have to go D, E, F. I gave you the answer. So C, up a fourth, is F. Okay, then we go down a fourth. Again, count that first letter as 1, and the letter you land on when you say 4, you can use your fingers, okay? So if you were going, let's say we're on A, so we have to go, and we want to go down a fourth. A, G, F, E. That's 4 fingers. So the last letter I said is down a fourth from A. Okay? Then write the name of a piece that you have played that begins with the interval of a fourth. This is a tricky one because you're going to have to think about all the pieces that you know and see if they start with a fourth. Okay? Now, there are some famous songs that start with a fourth. One of them is by Richard Wagner, and it's from an opera. And then you hear it at weddings often, and it's called Here Comes the Bride. And it goes, ba, da, da, da. That's a fourth. Ba, da, ba, da. Okay? I can think of some songs in book 2 that start with a fourth. Another one that you might know is Amazing Grace. That starts with a fourth. Amaze. That's a fourth. Okay? So can you think of a song that you know that goes ba-da? Think about it. Okay? Then fifths. So again, with a fifth, how many letters are in a fifth? You are also smart. It is 5. You are right. So A, count the first letter as 1. A, B, C, D, E. So A to E is a fifth. Okay? You're doing the same thing. Now, what's kind of cool, so do you remember the third was line to line? So we went line to line. That's a third. A fifth goes line to line, but we skip a line. Okay? So it's kind of interesting. The odd number intervals, 3 and 5, are always line to line or space to space. So this is a fifth. Skip the space. Okay? The even number intervals are always line to space. It's going to be a note that's either a line, a space. So that's going to be an even number interval. This one right here. This one will be an odd number. Okay? So you can kind of look for patterns like that. Some of you guys love patterns, and so I think it's super interesting if you see those. If you see some other patterns like that while you're studying theory's a lot like math. So look for patterns. Okay, so fourths and fifths this week. Now look at the second page. I give you 2 notes, and then I wrote second, third, fourth, fifth. So you have to figure out what are these notes and then tell me which one it is. Circle if this is a second, a third, or a fourth. So here's an idea, okay? F and B. It's a space to a line. So I know immediately it's going to be an even number. It's going to be 2 or 4. It won't be 3 or 5 because it's a space to a line. So that eliminates 2 answers already. Then you have to figure out, is this a second or a fourth? Okay? So you have 2 lines of that, 8 questions. Then I give you the first note and I tell you the interval. The first line, so it says going up. Write the interval, that interval going up from that note. Okay? Then down here, it's going down. Now, do you remember the order of the flats and the order of the sharps? So these are those silly sentences. The order of the sharps. Fat cat cats go down alleys eating burritos, or fat cats go down alleys eating burgers. Pick something that you want that starts with the letter B. They could go down the alley eating bugs, okay? And whatever you think. Beignets, I think we came up with that one. Burgers, burritos, bugs, beignets, butter, I guess. Think about it. You can pick what you want those fat cats going down the alleys to eat. Then the order of the flats. I remember bead, greatest common factor. That's the one that sticks in my head. You can come up with one that sticks for you. If it's bead, go catch fish, or before, I have to think about this one, before eating a donut, get coffee first. I love that one too, because I like donuts and I like coffee, but I don't remember that one as easy. I have to remember B, greatest common factor. Then, can you draw a crescendo in this box and a diminuendo? Which way, do you remember which way? That's the question. So draw a crescendo and a diminuendo. Okay, that's lesson 19. That's it. Have a great week. Stay dry in all this rainy weather we have this week, and I'll see you guys next week.